Hello everyone, welcome to our September Training Tuesday for OU Campus. Today's topic is an introduction to accessibility for content editors and administrators. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode as this session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your screen. We will attempt to address your questions throughout the presentation, and if there are any remaining questions we cannot answer during this webcast, we will provide an answer via email. Today, your presenter is Billy Woody, Software Trader and Curriculum Specialist. Billy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to take over your screen here and go over to mine right now. All right, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to come out here today. As Barbara mentioned, my name is Billy Woody. I am one of the software traders curriculum specialist here at the Update, and today we're going to be going over accessibility and OU Campus. So to start out with, our agenda for today is, of course, what is accessibility for websites? Who needs accessible websites? Setting up accessibility in the OU Campus setup menu, making site-wide exceptions to rules, responsiveness and bandwidth issues, page checks and common errors, using OU Insights for accessibility, and time permitting, I'm going to go over some custom CSS that help identify accessibility errors on a page. So what is accessibility? Accessibility is the process of making your website accessible and usable to as many people as possible, regardless of the roadblocks or impairments they may face. So why make your site accessible? Well, it's the law. Maybe. And I say that because most accessibility stuff is based out of the Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, which primarily dealt with federal websites. However, schools in states that have received grants from the Assistive Technology Act grants are required to also meet these standards. So something to be mindful of if your sites aren't fully accessible now and your state is receiving these grants, you need to make sure that you are in compliance with Section 508. And of course, in the very end, it's the right thing to do because you want to reach as many people and prospective students as possible. So you want to make sure your site is accessible to everyone. So what roadblocks that are there that I talked about at the very beginning here? The obvious ones, of course, are those who are disabled, persons who are blind, deaf, they have mobility or cognitive issues, those with epilepsy, etc. Also, people accessing your site from multiple devices, such as mobile phones, tablets, and watches. Is your site viewable on these multiple types of devices that are now available? And then also the users with limited bandwidths or very slow internet connections. Is your site so filled with large images and content that it just takes forever to download? So these are things to be mindful of. And lastly, are languages. Is your site easily translated into multiple languages that serve the community your institution happens to be in? So things to be mindful of. So all of these roadblocks are taken care of through accessibility guidelines that have been designed by the Web Accessibility Initiative, or the WAI, or the World Wide Web Consortium, which is the W3C. Together, they have published a Web Content Accessibility Guideline, or the WCAG. There's a quick shortcut for it here and a QR code. You don't have to remember this now or take a screen grab of it now. This will be part of the potential downloads for this later, so you can get this yourself and read through any of the guidelines you want to read about. So there are 4 principles of accessibility from the WCAG, and these are the guiding principles for anything that's accessible. That's the site must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And so to go through each of these, perceivable means that the user interface must be presented in a manner that the user can perceive, meaning that the user must be able to understand the message or information being presented by at least one of their senses. And operable, the components and parts of that interface, including the navigation, must be easily operable. So the user must be able to operate that website and not require interaction that the visitor cannot do. So there must be some method by which that the user can operate this website. And then understandable. Information and the operation of the user interface must be easily understandable. So the information and operation, it cannot be beyond one's understanding. So in simple terms, keep things simple. Do not overcomplicate your menu structure. Do not overcomplicate your navigation system, because then it makes accessibility much more difficult. And then lastly is robust. The content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably by a wide variety of user agents, including assisted technologies. So making sure that your site is continually updated and up to date, so it can take advantage of newer technology, newer accessibility technology. So it's a constant job. You don't just get it set it once for accessible. There's always some updates that are continually happening for the site. I'm going to go over a couple of brief things before we get into the site. The first is responsiveness of your pages. And so looking at, for example, the full width of our Omni Update site, this is what the site would look like, of course, if it were viewed from a typical laptop or desktop computer with a full width screen. But then when this same site is being viewed from a portrait tablet, we see that it will automatically update the view and the content and begin to create the hamburger menus that we see on the top right-hand side. And then when we switch the tablet over to a landscape, we see that it adjusts accordingly for that as well. And then, of course, over to mobile devices, we again see this hamburger menu that's been created here at the top right-hand side. And all of this is automated, so that way there's, once the different sizes are set up and somebody views your site from the sizes, your responsiveness will automatically take over and readjust your site so that way it can be seen more easily. Limited bandwidth. This is very important as well. So what I've got here basically is an image that's at full size, and this is a 9 megabyte image. And so if this image is being used on your desktop site, it will probably load up pretty quickly, but somebody who's maybe on a mobile device has limited bandwidth, it could take forever to download. So I made 4 different sizes to show you how just decreasing the size doesn't really alter the image at all. So at half size here, at a little over 4 megabytes, we see there's no discernible difference in the image at all. Then down all the way to quarter size to 2 megabytes. And then lastly, a tenth the size at 159 KB. There's a slight difference that you can see in there. Those with the with an eye for this kind of things can see it. But for most people, if you're looking at this on a small device, it's going to look just as good as the 9 megabyte image, and it's not going to take up a ton of bandwidth to do that. So let's go ahead and jump into the software and take a look at OU Campus. And the first place we're going to go into is the settings menu. To get to the setup, you would go underneath the setup and into account. So to get to here, you do need to be a level 10. So those of you who are not level 10 admins, you will not be able to get here, but at least you'll know what's being done in the background here. Also, I wanted to point out, the interface here might look a little different than what you're used to. I am doing this training in our new version 11 of the GUI interface. So if you've not seen this yet, this is why it looks a little bit different. These will all eventually switch over to this version 11 interface after the end of the year. So here you're getting an early preview just in case you've not seen it yet. So once we are here in the account settings, I want to go down to where it says publish settings. Right now, my accessibility checker is not on. So to turn it on, I'm just going to click on the button here, and this will bring up several different options that are now available. The first of which is the accessibility guidelines. So here we see we've got different versions of the Wcag starting at 1.0 all the way up to 2.1. And then we have different levels, levels A, AA, and AAA. These are levels of conformance. The level A conformance is the lowest level. And this is basically the bare minimum. And all this means is that your site is able to be accessed by people with disabilities. There are some notable requirements that are required for the A, like no keyboard traps, meaning that when somebody's tabbing through on the keyboard, that the cursor does not get stuck inside of a field someplace that they can't get out of, or doesn't just cycle in the same area. So these minimum standards are required. Also things like video captions are also required for level A. The level AA, which is pretty much the most that are used by most sites around the country and around the globe, actually. This is has the most accessible rules that meet all the standards, including the ADA uses the level AA as well for the website. So that lets you know that it is good enough for them, should be good enough for most of the schools as well. And some notable requirements for the AA level, we start getting into things like color contrast requirements. It's going to require at least a 4.5 to 1 color contrast ratio for text over color, things like that. Alt text is going to be required now for all images that are used within the site. Form fields have to have accurate labels. Headings need to be used in logical order. So if you have headings throughout the page, it needs to start out as an H1, H2, H3. You can't have nested headers, which I will discuss momentarily as well. The last of which, of course, is the AAA. And this is the highest level, and most sites do not use this, because what ends up happening when you get to the AAA level, your site design and functionality begins to suffer. So typically you're not going to have your site be a AAA site. The only time you'll have sites that are designed for AAA is when the site itself is designed specifically for handicap use, or specifically for maybe seniors to use, something like that. So if you had a separate site that was designed for that, that separate site might then use this AAA standard. And just some notable things for the AAA standard, things like your video and audio have to have sign language interpretation included. Color contrast has to be as high as 7 to 1. And then context sensitive help throughout the entire site as well. So this is why the AA is typically the one that is used. Also, your site, if it's already on, it's going to be set up at the version that was available when your site was designed. So for example, when this site was designed, we were at 2.0 of the Wcag. So that's what I'm just going to leave it at. So when you do are an admin and you go see this and you notice that you're at 2.0, but the Wcag goes all the way up to 2.1, your site was most likely designed when it was 2.0. So that's why that's the standard that you're sticking with at the moment. Now, once you have this turned on, you do have these accessibility options that will be shown when the accessibility checker is run. The known problems will automatically show. There is no option to turn that on or off. So when you do run an accessibility check, if it does see a problem that it knows for sure is a problem, it will list it. So this way your content editors can actually edit the page and fix those problems. You do have the option to turn on or off likely problems or potential problems. Likely problems are things that need a human to look at. So if it does see something that it thinks it might be used as a header and it's being done in bold or something like that, it basically will prompt you saying, hey, this might be a header, so you might want to check this out. And so somebody needs to look at it to determine whether or not it is an error or not. Potential problems, typically these more focus on things that are more software related. So here you'll see things like it'll point out that it notices some JavaScript, and it will tell you something to the effect of there might be some flicker here, take a look at this and make sure that it's okay. And so these are things that are going to be handled more at the admin level. So typically most of your content editors are not going to worry about the potential problems. They'll usually look at just the known or the likely problems, but we'll leave everything on here so we can take a look at it. So once I've made these changes, I'm going to go ahead and save this out. And then I want to go over to the site level. And I'm going to click on here to edit and go to edit site. And here I have my published settings as well. And so here I can, if I want to, turn on what is called final check and then turn on the accessibility checker. This will force the accessibility to checker to run. And so every time a page goes to be published, it will automatically run the accessibility checker for me. And then as an admin, you can also decide whether or not you want the publish button to be enabled only if your accessibility passes either all known problems or for all problems. So these are all options that are available to your admin for accessibility purposes. So for now, I'll just leave the final check off because I don't need to have it on because I'm going to be running it all manually anyway. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the responsiveness and bandwidth issues that could potentially come up with your site. So I'm going to go back over here to the homepage for our Sandbox Galena University. And I want to look at how it works in responsiveness and how it works with different bandwidth. So in order to do some testing here, most browsers have really great tools included with them, which are called the inspector. For Chrome, which is what I'm using here, it's called Inspect. For Microsoft Edge, it's also called Inspect. Internet Explorer and Firefox both use a term called Inspect Element. They all do the same thing. And what it'll do is it will bring up this dialog information here about the site. Typically, this is going to be mounted into the page itself, either on the right or on the bottom. I've purposely removed it out of here so that way I can get it out of the way. And what I've done here, you've got this little option here to toggle the device toolbar, which is what we see here at the top of the screen right now. So I'm going to move this out of the way because I don't really need to see this part anymore. So right now we see that it's set up at responsive. And so as I increase and decrease the size, I get down to around 640, which is when it'll change. We see now the site is responsive and automatically will change to the new look. It's taken the menu, turned it into a hamburger menu as well. And then as I continue on down, I can see it gets smaller. If I want to see how it's going to look in different devices, there are a bunch of devices that are already predefined. If you want to go in and create a custom device, as I did here with like the Galaxy Note 8, I can see how this is going to look in a particular device as well. And so this becomes a really powerful tool to really test your site and make sure that it's working exactly like you want it to work, and that it's responsive, and that all your responsive features are working as well. Now, one of the other tools in here is the bandwidth tool. So right now, for example, I am in what's called online, which is basically the fastest possible tool. There's no throttling at all with this at the moment. So if I go and I click on athletics and we go to the Galena Gophers page, we see it instantly is going to pop right back up. And so if I go back all the way up here to the main page, now if I come back over here to my online and I go to like low-end mobile device and we go back to athletics, and we see already it's much slower than it was before. And I click on the Galena Gophers page, we see how much longer it takes to load up. So this is going to give you a really great result back, a testing for your images and content of your site. So if you see that some of these images are taking forever to download, this might be a sign for you to go in and maybe change those images out to something that's a little bit smaller in size, so that way at the lower end, you don't have to worry about having this responsiveness problems going on here. So, all right. In terms of dealing with some of the bandwidth concerns with images, there is a great tool within OU Campus, which is called image size sets, which will allow you to create images of different sizes that then you can use for different devices. So if you set your CSS up to automatically change out these images for different devices, back underneath your setup menu, you have what are called image size sets. And so here I can set up different sizes of images for like a large device, a phone large, a phone small, a tablet, and a watch. And then what I've done is I've taken all these different sizes of images and put them all into a single image size set called responsive images. And then once I've done this, what I can do is in my pages menu here, I'm going to go down to my folder that I'm using today, which is my Training Tuesday Accessibility. I've created a folder called my image size set folder here. And if I go to the More Actions button and I click on Edit Access, here for image size set, I've assigned that responsive images to this folder. So what that means is anytime I add in an image into this folder, it's automatically going to create all of those additional images. So if I take an image now and I drop it in here into the folder, upload it into that folder, and then it's going to automatically create all those different sizes of the images. And then I can use that throughout the different parts of the site that I need to. And again, if I have my CSS set up to automatically switch out images for different size devices, it'll do that as well. We'll do a quick refresh of the screen here, and we should start to see now it's creating all the different size images. And so it's got a couple more to create. And once it's done creating those, it'll place those in here as well. We'll do one more quick refresh here. There we go. Now we see them all. So it's created the original. Then I've got the one for the phone, the large one, the small one, the tablet, and the one for the watch. And you can see it's automatically scaled them down in size as you see the different sizes here. So making use of that image size set tool for accessibility can become very, very handy for you. So, all right. The next thing we wanted to get into are some common accessibility errors and using the page check tool. So I'm going to come over here to this and I'm going to open up this page here. And I'm going to turn off.
Hey, Billy, you got a quick question about the image size sets.
Yes, here we go. Image functionality scaling, part of version of, no, it's actually, Ellen, it actually is part of the version 10 as well. So it is included in the current version that you're using right now. You're very welcome. And then we've got, oh, same question here. Is image available in the latest version? No, Samuel, same question. It is available now currently in the version you are using as well. Great questions, guys. Appreciate those. All right. So here we are now on a sample page where I'm going to talk about nested headers. So right now I've got on here just a header and a subheader on my page. And I have the page checked out to me. So if I click on the More Action button here on the right, and then click on Page Check, you're going to see I have my accessibility option here. I'm going to click on this to run it. And when I run this, I see that I've got 1 known problem and 88 potential problems. So if I click on this, the known problem that it found is the header nesting issue. So it's showing me that I've got an H1 here. And it's letting me know to repair this, I want to make sure my H2 is following an H1. And if I'm unsure of what this actually means, I can click on the cause of it here, and it'll come through. It'll open up this page here to give me an example of what a pass is, an example of what the fail is, and it gives me all the links to the Wcag so I can meet all the different standards if I want to. So all the information I need is available within here. Now, since I know this is just a header nesting issue now that is letting me know that I've got the wrong header type following the other one, I'm just going to go back into the page and then open up that main content and figure out what happens here. So if I go to the header and I put my cursor here, I see that this is an H1 and the subheader is an H3. So typically what you want your headers to do is to follow in a numerical order. So if it starts out at an H1, the next header on your page needs to be an H2. And if there's another subheading for that, it needs to be an H3. And then if it starts back up again, you go back up to H2, then H3, then that kind of thing. Now, typically the H1, which this heading here is reserved for the title of the page, which here is called accessibility training. So I don't want to have 2 H1s on my page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my header that's here and I'm going to change that to an H2. And so now I have an H2 here, and then I have an H3 for my subheader. And if I save this now, and go back over to my More Actions and run my page check again and my accessibility, we'll see that 1 known error is now gone. And now I just have the other potential problems that are there. And we can open up that now and take a look at those potential problems. And here we have a bunch of them. We see these are all different potential issues. Now, there's a lot that's here. So if I want to see them a little easier, I can click on this button that says open in a new window. So that'll open it up over here so I can see this a little easier. Expand this out. And so you can see some of the issues that it's seeing in here. So it's seeing things like maybe a missing sitemap, an image element. It has a small description, but it might think it might need a larger description. Right now it just says Galena University. So again, these are just different things where I'd have to go into the source code to actually change some of these things sometimes, because this actually is coming into what's called an include file at the top of the screen. So I, as the content editor, would not have the ability to edit this on the page itself. So there's a lot of different things that could potentially pop up in here. Now, as with any of these, if I do realize, like, for example, here, this JavaScript here where it says this might not be using color alone, and I know this is actually just fine, I can make an exception for any of these things here now by clicking on this and giving it a reason here and saying this is not really an issue. And then I can just save that. And so now next time that it runs, we see now 13 exemptions were made because of that. And so now there's only 75 potential problems. At any point, I can go back into the setup menu and get rid of that exemption if I no longer need it. So that way, if I want to make sure I'm looking for those problems. So that's how you can get rid of the issues that are running into your potential problems right here. So we can close this out. All right. One of the other problems that we sometimes see are descriptive links that are not descriptive enough. So if I come over here to my descriptive links page, yes, the exemption is for the whole site, not just for the page. You are correct. So that was the question was this exemption affect just that one page or the entire site? Exemptions are site-wide. So when you make them, everywhere in the site will have that exemption as well. You're very welcome. All the exemptions, Kelsey, are listed inside of the menu under the setup. And so there you'll be able to find a list of all the exemptions that are there. So in that setup menu, if I came over to here really quickly and open this up in a new tab, if I go back to the publish settings over here on the left-hand side, and I go to manage exceptions. So there's one active exception, so it's going to show it right here. And so if I want to remove that now, I can remove it. So anything that's an active exception is going to be listed here in this part as well. All right. A question here from Phyllis. You're new to OU. Do you offer introductory webinars? Absolutely, Phyllis. On Fridays, once a month, we have our introduction to OU campus. The next one, let me pull up my calendar here and I'll tell you when the next one is coming up.
I believe it is October 8th.
Is it October 8th? Is it next week?
Yes, it is next week, October 9th.
There you go, next week, October 9th. So you can register for that, Phyllis, actually on the support website. Just go to support.omniupdate.com, and right on the front page towards the bottom left will be a registration area for our monthly orientation. And there you can get a really great overview of the OU campus. So great question. And you guys are welcome. Thank you for the question so far. All right. So again, that you can manage the exceptions that have been made already. All right. So over here, I've got a bunch of text, and then at the very end of this text, I have a link that says click here. So if I click on the page check for this now, and I run an accessibility check on this here, we see I've got a likely problem. And here it's telling me that the link text needs to be more descriptive. So basically, all it says is click here. So when an accessibility reader is reading this and it gets to this link, the link is now only going to say click here. And so it's not going to give any additional information to the person who's using the accessibility reader. So having links that actually are a little bit more descriptive are important to making sure you're passing all your accessibility standards. So in order to make a quick fix here, I can highlight this and select the insert edit link. And here where it says click here, I can do something like click here for more information. Oops, if I spelled it correctly would help. Information on our school. And we'll save that. And so now that link has got a little bit more information on it. And so if I save it and we rerun that page check, you see now that likely problem is now disappeared because there is more information built into that. So that way we're not going to get that error. So having a bunch of things that just say click here, go there, those kind of things, those are problems that you will run into with your accessibility checker. So something to be mindful of when you are doing your content on your pages. All right. The next thing you might run into, potential problems, are contrast issues on pages. So I'll open up my contrast page here. All right. So here I've got several tables that I have set up with examples of some passing and failing contrast ratios. So here, for example, I've got just black over white and then down to different gray levels over white. And you see, once we get down to 4.5 and under, we begin to fail. And so now sometimes with some of these, like with the 4.5, if your text is larger, a much larger text, you'll get a pass on that. So if the text is large enough, it will pass even with a 4.5. But with the text down to something like around an 11 point or something like that, you are going to get a fail on that. Same thing here with like my gray levels over black. When we get into more of the lighter here, and then the white, of course, we get into our passing levels. And then we have different colors over white, like the sign here, and then different colors over different backgrounds. So you can see the differences that we have here. Now, if I run my page check on here, we see that it's got 19 problems that are known. And so these are those potential color issues. We're seeing that the background element is not sufficient to meet the WGA 2.0 level AA. There's not enough contrast on these items. So it's actually killing us what it is here, the 4.5 to 3.1. So you can do 3.1 for larger text, which is what I was talking about there. So here are all those different potential problems that it's going to find because those contrast ratios are off. So again, these are something to be mindful of when you are having text over a colored background or text on an image, those types of things. Now, there are plenty of tools out online to help you decide whether or not what colors you want to use. I have a quick link on here to one of them, this contrast checker. It's a great little tool that's just free to use. So in here with the color contrast checker, you can select your text color, and it's going to show you the example here on the right-hand side. So we can take a new text color and then go here and choose a new background. And then when we've done that, it gives us what the contrast ratio is, whether or not it's going to work, how many stars for it. It's a 12.5 contrast, it's really high contrast ratio, and whether or not it works in small or large text. And so here now, if I start going into colors that match the background, we're going to start to see some differences in the contrast here. Start bringing it down. And now we get into the darker colors. We now start to see the differences. We're getting the errors in here as well. We do have a question that popped up. Is it possible to change the accessibility rules? Our campus color contrast crimes is 7 and above. You can if you switch your settings in the setup menu to the AAA. It doesn't really hinder anything within the site itself. You're just going to get more reports back of those error messages. So it will report back anything that is 7 and below then if you switch your level to the AAA. So you can do that within the setup menu in your account setting, and that will automatically allow you to do that, and it'll pull up anything that is that kind of a contrast ratio. So hopefully that answers the question for you there. You're welcome. Yes, copy of the test page I'm showing. Absolutely. I can make all of these things available to you. I'll work with Barbara afterwards on the best way to get those available to you, but I can definitely get those sent over to you without a problem. So, all right. All right, and so again, this is the color contrast. It's easy to fall into a trap with these because a lot of times we are building this stuff and it looks good to us, and we're not really necessarily always thinking about how it might appeal to somebody else other than they might think it looks good or not. But in some instances, it'll just be difficult to read entirely. So using a contrast checker and then running your page check on anything that's got colored text over different backgrounds is going to be essential to making sure that you're not running into any problems with your color contrasting. All right. Another pitfall that can create problems sometimes are running into things like when you're copying content from other sources. So for example here, let me bring up my page that I want to use here, and I'm going to bring up my sample page as well that I've created. So here, what I want to do is I'm editing this page, and I have found some text on another website that I want to use in here, but I'm just going to copy and paste it. And so if I go over here to this other site and I just take this text and I copy it, and the text is very descriptive as to what is going on with it, so that way you know what's happening here. And then I paste it onto the page here. this text that I just brought over, it's being bolded out using the bold element for HTML instead of using something like strong or emphasis. Another question comes up here. Can you give me a link? Phyllis says, can I email a link to ensure road?
Hey, Billy, I will follow up with Phyllis
Okay.
in order to make sure she gets the monthly orientation.
Got it. Will do.
Link. Yep.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. There we go. All right. So, so if I put my cursor over this here, you actually, I'm not sure how many of you guys know this or not, but if you look down here on the bottom left-hand side of the screen here, you see where it says path B, P, which is for the P tag, and then B for the B tag. So it's going to show you exactly kind of what your text is using in that little blurb of information down here. So if you're ever not sure, you take a look at it or tell you what it is. So if I save this now and we run a page check on this, you see we're going to get these known problems. For here, it's letting me know I'm using a bold element when I should be using a strong or an EM tag, which we see right here. So I'm going to want to replace those to be able to fix those errors to do that. Now, one of the easiest ways to avoid this from happening is when you do copy something to your site, is to copy it by stripping out all of the formatting. And so there's a couple of ways you can do that. If you paste it by holding down the Shift and the Alt V at the same time, basically it's going to strip out all of the text, or you can also turn on this tool right here, which strips out all the formatting as well. And so when I do my Control V to paste, it removes all of the bold elements and things like that that were in here. So now it's just place it down as plain text. So now when I want to bold it out, if I highlight it and select my bold from the menu here, we now see if I put my cursor here that it's now using a strong, no longer a bold. So it shows me now that I'm getting using the correct type of formatting. So now when I go back and I save this again and rerun that page check, that error message I had before for that known problem is now gone. All right. Now, of course, one of the things that are often done by many people on sites is copying images from other sources as well. And you can run into the same problems. Part of the requirement for working in a AA standard is that alt images need to have an alt text. So if I came over here and I want to use this lovely education banner, I can copy this image. The question? Yes, you can also set it so that everybody can paste in plain text only. That's up to your basically your admin and how your toolbars are set up. You can't automatically force that all paste is done only as text only. So you do have that option to turn on to force that for everybody who's editing pages. Absolutely. Great point to bring up. Thank you. All right. So I've copied this image. I'm going to go back over to this page. And now I'm just going to paste the image onto the page. And so I'm going to go ahead and save that out. All right, so now I have my image here, and you'll see now if I run my page check and accessibility check on this image itself, I now have a known problem that has popped up. That is because it's missing the alt attribute. There is no description, alt description for this. So when an accessibility reader hits this image, it's nothing it can say about this image at all, because there's no alt text included with it. So in order to fix that, one, of course, is to, instead of just copying and pasting images, is to download images and then upload them through the through OU Campus and place them onto the page using the image tool here. But if you do paste it onto the page and you want to confirm that it's okay, you still can do that by selecting the image and selecting the Insert Edit Image icon. It does bring up the dialog box for that. So here under the alt text, I can now go ahead and put in my description here. And go ahead and save that out. So now it's added that alt text to the image. And so again, when we run our page check on that, that known problem will now be gone and we no longer have the known problem that we see into here. So there are still some other likely problems and things like that that we see in here. And again, we can make our exceptions for anything that's going on through here. If you don't want to, again, bother your content editors with potential problems that they can't deal with anyway, you can just turn that off. And so that way it doesn't show up. They're just looking at the likely problems and the known problems. So here, the likely problem that it sees here, this is telling me that it's seeing a P element, and it's suggesting that it might be a header. And so basically what it's telling me is that right here with these elements here, go back to my main content, I'm using header 3 for that one and header 3 for that one. Here I'm just using just the P element, and because it's bolded, it thinks that it might be a header. So it's saying, hey, you might want to use a header for this if this is actually a heading of a section. It's not in this case, so I can just ignore that and not worry about it. But that's where that potential error is coming from and why it wants somebody to take a look at it. I had another question just come in for a couple of them here from Jules. I would like to share the tool I use to check the color contrast analyzer.
Hey, Billy, I did a quick Google search on color contrast analyzer. It looks like it's a download. So it's not a browser tool the way the one that you were showing was, but it does look like it has WCAG 2.1 compliance on it. So that might be a nice tool for some of our customers.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that, Jules, and then maybe include that in the content that'll be downloadable from this seminar today. So thank you for sharing that, Jules. I'll take a look at that. And for Phyllis, when you copy text, can it be from Word format? Must it be from PDF? You can actually copy from Word or PDF, but you have the potential to running into the exact same problems as copying from the web, because there can be a lot of formatting that is done in a Word document or PDF document as well that can carry over accidentally. So again, you're going to typically want to paste without formatting, even from Word or from PDF. To make sure that you're not running into any problems there. That usually is your best practice, is to paste without formatting and then format on the page itself. And we have another here. Where can I find the manage accessibility options again? I would like to delete one I made. Yes, they are all found underneath the setup menu and then under accounts. And you do need to be a level 10 to do this. So if you made an exception and you're not a level 10, you'll just have to ping one of your admins to go in and make the change for you. So under publish settings in here, you can manage your exceptions. And so anything in here that you've added that you no longer want, you can just click remove exception and then it'll be gone. All right, get rid of that window. All right. Okay. So the next issue that I want to go over is when people use H tags for formatting. If I click on this page right here to bring this up, let's get rid of this one we no longer need. So in this instance here, I've got this table set up with some course numbers and course titles and credits. And if I run my page check on this page now, I see that I've got one known problem and then I've got 100 potential problems. So I want to go take a look at this here. And again, I want to open this up in a new note because it makes it a little easier to see all these potential problems that we have here. So we can see we start to scroll through all of these problems that we have here. Let's go to the first one that I see that I know is an issue. Let's see here, 232. One of these that's using an H5. Let's find it on here. There we go. So what this is doing is when this table was created, for the course titles, what was used were heading tags instead. And it's not really a heading. So this error that it's letting us know is that somebody is in the design of this page is using header tags for formatting. So this may have been better used by using something different than just using the H tags for this. So if I close this out and we go into the content here, and if I put my cursor over these course numbers, we see these are H5s, and they're really not headings. They're just the names of the courses. But what sometimes happens is somebody wants to use the same style for the headings, but they want to use them as a style and not necessarily heading. So some of the options that can be done, which we've done here, for example, in this sandbox, is we've replicated our headings as styles. So we have alt header 1, alt header 2, 3, 4, and 5. So instead of using the header here, I'll go here and turn this back to just paragraph, and instead go back here and do my alt header 5 for that instead. So now I no longer am using a header option in here. I'm now just using the alt style for this. And so I can do the same with each of these here, turn these both back into paragraphs, and then turn each of these styles into the alt 5 style that I want to use instead. And so I have these alternative versions of my H tags, but now I'm no longer going to get those errors that I have by using H tags to do formatting. I'll show you briefly, because this is going to be getting a little bit deeper into how this is done. But I did want to kind of just, for those of you who do this, who do have this availability to do this, kind of show you where that is done. The styles here are stored in a file called styles.txt. And if I go here to my content, we'll open this up in a new window real quickly here. I'm going to show you where this is found. We're going to go all the way to our root level, to our resources, OU, and then editor. You have what's called a styles.txt file. So here we see the listing of all those styles that we found inside of this menu right here. Our different 5 different alt headers, our red, bold, our yellow, green, and our button. There they are right here. All those items that were in there. And all this is done is just using whatever style I've created here in my style sheet. So I've created an alternative header called header 1, header 2, header 3. And so I'm just making reference to those within this sheet. So that way it'll make them available inside of my styles. So it's a great tool to add additional styles to your sheet here, and to add additional alternatives to your headers. So that way you're not using your headers for formatting your pages in here. So really great tool to use. Save our changes here. Now that we changed that, we could run our page check again, but I think you guys get the idea on that, so I won't run the page check here. So the next thing that I wanted to get into is one of the additional tools that are available, optional tools that are available within OU Campus, which is what's called Insights. This is found underneath the Reports menu. If I click on Reports Insights, this brings me to the Insights menu here. So the Insights is going to do things like check your overall site for things like for SEO scores, links, spelling, and then of course accessibility. And so here we can get basically a bird's eye view of everything going on in the site through the accessibility checker here within Insights. So for example, here under known problems, it's letting me know that this header nesting problem that I have here is found on 25 different, or there's 25 different problems, and the header nesting problem is found on 521 different pages. So if I want to go in and find out what's going on each of the pages, I can go and click directly on that page and go to the page and edit it and find out what the problem is with that. So I can see very quickly using this tool where I have errors all over my site. Here I've got another heading nesting issue. I have an H3 that is incorrect. Another header nesting. Here I've got some contrast problems that are showing up. And so here I've got 12 different pages. I've got 19 issues on this page potentially that are problems. Anchors with no text, missing valid text for these documents. So all kinds of different potential problems that are being used here, or known problems rather. And then underneath likely problems, you've got here some different potential issues that can come up. Again, it's going to give you whatever the issue is and how many pages are having that problem. So here's interface components with labels, include text or images. A P element might be misused as a header file. So again, oh, here's a nice one. This is ASCII art might be used on a page, and you might need to use the ASCII art skip over to make sure to skip over that particular page. So, so this will typically sometimes happen if you have something on your screen where you've got multiple special characters next to one another. It might mistake it as ASCII art. If I open this up in a new link, a new page, we can open this up in here and find out right here. So this is a props file. So this is why it's seeing this as an error. It's seeing some information in here that it doesn't see it as regular text. It sees it as potentially an ASCII. Now, most of the props files are going to get skipped over anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. But down here on this one error here for the ASCII for this fancy box, open this up in a new tab as well. This here happens to have a section of sample code on the page for the user. So this sample code then is what's creating that potential ASCII art error. So in order to make sure that this section is skipped over by the accessibility reader, because you don't want it sitting here maybe and potentially reading every single character inside of this, you're going to have a command here that tells the accessibility reader to skip over this ASCII art. So you don't have to worry about that showing up as a potential problem as well. All right.
Hey, Billy, you got a question about insights.
Oh, down here. Oh, there it is. Is Insights an extra charge or in V11? We don't seem to have. Yeah, Insights is an optional item with OU Campus. I don't know anything about the pricing or anything like that in it. I know that it's a tool that is available in either 10 or 11, but it is an optional item.
If people are interested, you can contact your account director and they'll be able to get you more information about the OU Insights module.
All right. Another part here is the page reports themselves. So under page reports, we can actually then drill down to whatever page we want to look at specifically and go to that page and see the information about that page. So if I go into my Training Tuesday accessibility folder, and we're going to go to maybe one of the pages in here. Let's take a look at my index page. On this index page, it's going to give me all the information about this particular page. And of course, I'm mostly just concerned about the accessibility. But right here on at least the first tab, the SEO, it's giving me a list of all the different tags that are on the page and if I have any. So here it's letting me know that I have multiple H1s on this page. I've got accessibility training as an H1 and the word header as an H1. So I now know I have 2 H1s on this page. And so this could potentially be a problem to accessibility readers because typically they look for that H1 as being the main title for that page to either speak out loud or make larger on the screen. So that way the visitor knows exactly what that page is about. And then any additional H tags that are on here is going to show all of those as well. So here we've got multiple H4s and on here H5s and H6s. Then again, if we click on the accessibility for just this particular page, it's going to list all of my known problems. So here's that header nesting that we see here. Here's the suspicious link problem right here. And so right now it's a link that just says click here. So again, this is the less descriptive text, which is what it's finding on this particular page. And then any other potential problems that it's going to find in here. You're potentially using H5 as a section header, things of that nature. So the Insights tool, really powerful. I love using this. Something to potentially look at as possibly adding to your tool set, which would be really awesome. So, all right. So that takes care of most of the things I wanted to cover, but I do have a little bit of time. So I did wanted to go over, show you one of the things that can be done within OU Campus using your CSS tools. And if people are more interested in this later, we could potentially do another Training Tuesday on how to do some of these types of things. So what I've done here, I have a page here with a bunch of information on it. Some things have accessibility errors. And of course, I can run my accessibility checker and go and find out what all those errors are that way. But what I've done is in the preview mode here, you can preview your page in different types of products, basically. So right now I've got HTML and accessibility. So accessibility is the one that I've created. And so if I want to take a quick, basically graphical look at what my page looks like with any potential errors or accessibility issues, if I click on accessibility, it basically goes through and it will list all of my tags. If I have any errors, like for example, this button consists only of a £. The image was missing the alt text, and here it's listing all the different H tags and coloring them up accordingly. So I've got them all color coded as well. And so these are just some unique and fun things that can be done just using your CSS to create these different types of checks on your pages. Like I said, if there's something that interests some of you more, we can plan on potentially doing another training Tuesday, dive a bit more into creating these types of style sheets to run these types of checks. And so basically, once this is done, I can apply that a particular thing to any page and run the check on that as well. Samuel, great, thanks. I hope we have a lot of people interested, because I'd love to do something like this as well. So, but to show you really quickly how I can just add this to any page once I've created it, basically, again, in my source code here, again, I'm probably stepping forward more than what some of you maybe intended to do today. But here, this little line of code right here, and I'm going to take this little section here, this description. This basically uses a different set of XSLs and a CSS to analyze that page. And so if I go back to any of my other pages now, say, for example, my color contrast page, and I go to the source in here as well, maybe just underneath the HTML, paste that in here. And if I save that, that is now available to me on this page. So now that I've pasted this in here and I go to the preview for this page, over here, I now have the accessibility preview. And so it'll go through and it'll let me know all the different things that are going on with this particular page based on the accessibility settings that I've put into this checker that's right here. So again, it gives me a really quick, just graphical look on the page without running the page check and having to go through it that way. So, yes, I've got a lot of people very interested in this. Fantastic. So Barbara, looks like we've got something slated for a future training Tuesday now.
I have it in my notes.
Fantastic. So, all right. So that's basically what I wanted to cover today. We're right about almost at our hour, which is good. So my timing was good today. If I go back over here, just as a note for our next training Tuesday that'll be coming up, which will be advanced snippet options on October 27th. So be sure to show up to that. There'll be a lot of great information there. And then we do have time to answer any additional questions while we are here. So I'll try to do that for you. All right, got another person interested. Question not related to today's training. Is there a way we can get in line to update our version of OU version 11 when it's officially released? Well, you can actually do that right now if
they're SaaS.
If you're SaaS, that is correct. Yeah, if you're not, if you are self-hosted, it's a little bit different. So, but if you are a SaaS client, you can actually do that now by having your admin go in and turn on the version 11 now. So if I went into my account setting here for this as an admin, you'll see there's a version 11 option here. So I can come in here and I can turn this on for all my users right now so everybody can see it and start using version 11 right now. So it is there. Speak to your admin. If you guys are a SaaS client, you're able to do this right now and go ahead and start using version 11.
Yep. If you're a self-hosted customer, we're planning on releasing 11.1 for our SaaS customers next week, October 8th. At that point, we're going to basically get everything kind of pulled together and packaged. And then we're planning on releasing 11.1 as the version 11 release for self-hosted. So keep an eye out for dates to come when that will be available. But we don't have anything at this time to be able to kind of get in line for it. But once that email goes out, you'll be able to email support and then we'll get you set up on the queue.
Okay, thank you, Barbara, so much for that information. That's awesome. Again, we have a couple more minutes here and we can extend it if we do have any other questions. Happy to answer them. So the floor is open in case anybody does have a question. Don't see image size sets on your end. How do you make that happen? Image size set, are you an admin, Samuel, that you can get into your setup? You are, okay.
This might be another self-hosted situation.
Yeah, Samuel, are you self-hosted or are you a SaaS client? Self-hosted, okay. So they probably would need to be updated to the newer version that has the that included into it. Is that correct, Barbara?
That is correct. I will check really quick to figure out which version had the image size sets, and I'll be able to let you know. Just 1 second.
Thank you, Barbara. Great question again, Samuel. So hopefully we'll have a good answer for you here shortly. You're very welcome. Again, the floor is open in case anybody does have any additional questions. Happy to answer them for you.
Okay, image size sets became available in a version 10.15.
Ah, there we go. All right, Phyllis, if you run into a problem, upload revised fillable form on my campus. There's support I can find on troubleshooting. So troubleshooting and uploads. If you're one of the named clients or reps for your school, you could just file a support ticket through the support site for that. So they would be able to help you with anything having to deal with uploading files and that kind of stuff to the form. So so yeah, definitely the support team can help you with that without much problem at all.
I apologize, I misspoke before. 10.14 is where image size sets became available.
Ah, there we go. Samuel, 10.14.
So if you are not seeing image size sets in your self-hosted environment, you can reach out to our support team in order to schedule an upgrade to 10.14 or to something further along in our versions list, or you can wait until the 11.1 becomes available. Everything that was a previous feature will also be wrapped into the version 11 update.
Yes, and if you're not sure what version you're on, you can double check. If you're in the user 10 interface, I'll switch back to that so you can actually see what it looks like. And so I can point you in the right direction to find out what version you are in. It's going to be underneath the help menu here, release notes, and it's going to tell you what version you happen to be in. So you can see the version number up there. So you'll know exactly where you are right now as well. So. Barbara, did you see the information there from Phyllis? She'd would appreciate contact support to the email. Thank you very much, Barbara. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
All right. Any other questions before we close things up for today? Doesn't look like it right now. So Barbara, I will return it to you then to, I guess, close it out for the day.
All right, I want to thank you all for attending our Training Tuesday today. Again, we'll be meeting next month for our next Training Tuesday on advanced snippet options. I'm going to ask you to please do fill out that feedback survey that you'll see. We'd love to hear back from you, and it helps us to tailor our Training Tuesdays for all of the future presentations that you'd like to see. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest. The session will be recorded. It'll be available on our support site, and you'll have the link in the post survey email that'll go out in a day or so.
Thank you all so much for the kind words. I really appreciate them. Thank you very much. Again, you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Hopefully we'll see you all back here for the next Training Tuesday. Have a great one, guys. Thank you so much.